What is up, guys? Welcome back to Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. And today we are doing another draft review, this time on the Los Angeles Chargers. I said it right that time. Los Angeles Chargers and their entire draft process. First thing I want to look at is, did they have a plan coming into this draft? And I gotta be honest with you guys, based on their draft, I don't know. Best available, I guess, but if it was best available, their board is very different than mine. Now, listen, I'm not going to be incredibly nice to the Chargers, so any Chargers fans watching, I want to apologize. Don't completely hate on me. I could absolutely be wrong, but for me, I didn't love this draft. I just didn't. Going down the line of my guidelines that I look at before we really get into the players and I start to kind of explain myself a little bit more, let's get to that. The offensive lineman in the first 4 rounds. Did they take an offensive lineman in the first 4 rounds? Because as I say in every single video that I've done so far, you cannot name a bad team with a good offensive line. It just doesn't happen. And for the Chargers, no, they didn't. They did not take an offensive lineman at all in this draft, which I thought was a little surprising considering they need help at offensive line. They really do. So that was a little bit of a shock to me, but that's okay. Did they take a wide receiver in this draft? And the only reason it's wide receiver is because that's the strength of what this draft was. It was a very deep class of wide receiver, and I think every single year, even if it's not a need, even if it's not something that you're highly valuing, really, if there is a strength in the draft, you should take the part of that strength. You should get a piece of the strength in the draft. And for this year, it was wide receiver, right? So I think even if you don't absolutely need a wide receiver, get one late because the value is there, because there were a lot of good players. There was a lot of depth. So some of the players that probably would have been a 4th round pick became 5th or 6th round picks. So that's just that just makes too much sense to me. And yes, they did. They took a wide receiver in the 5th round in Joe Reed, and that's pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. Joe Reed, not a guy that I did a lot of work on. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you guys, but I just love the fact that they took a shot at wide receiver there. So that's awesome. And what I do with these videos is I really only focus on the guys that were drafted in the first 3 rounds. I'm gonna change it up a little bit for the Chargers because they only took 2 players in the first 3 rounds, and there's a couple other things that I do want to talk about. So bear with me a little bit here. I'm gonna kind of go off script a little bit. With their very first pick in the first round at number 6 overall, they do take Justin Herbert. This is, there was a lot of speculation as to if the Chargers would take a quarterback or not. I actually thought they handled that really, really well. They really put it out there that they were not going to go quarterback at number 6. They were not going to take a quarterback. They were going to take best available and figure it out with Tyrod Taylor. And I'm not going to lie to you. I said it multiple times on my podcast, Between the Pylons podcast. Check it out, by the way. I said it multiple times, I'm sure, on this YouTube channel at some point, that I did not believe that they would not take a quarterback at 6. I thought it would just make too much sense for them to either trade up or just take the quarterback that was available at 6. And they did just that. They took Justin Herbert at 6 when the Dolphins took Tua. And I like Justin Herbert. I am scared of him. I do think there's a huge window as to whether he's going to be really good or really bad or somewhere in the middle. And I don't know. It could fall in the middle. It could fall at the top, or it could fall at the bottom. I think there's just a lot of outcomes. I like the player. I think he's a big, strong, physical guy who probably didn't run enough in college. And if you're interested in a long form take on all my thoughts about Justin Herbert, I have about a 30-minute video on him on this channel. Is my draft profile on Justin Herbert. You can check that out if you're interested. All in all, I think he's going to a great situation. The Chargers kind of have an infrastructure already set up for him. They have a pretty good running game. They have some wide receivers. They have a defined defense. So he's in a really good spot to succeed. I really like the opportunity that he's got. I think he probably landed in the best spot of any of the top 3 quarterbacks taken. I absolutely believe that. So Justin Herbert, he really has no excuse, and we'll see what happens with him. I'm not going to hate on that pick. I think the Chargers did what they had to do and took a quarterback here. I think it was the right decision. In round 1, again, they actually trade back up into round 1 to take Kenneth Murray, linebacker out of Oklahoma. And Kenneth Murray is a great player. I think he absolutely deserved to be a first-round pick. I think he was mocked a lot to either 23 or 24, so it made a lot of sense why the Chargers would trade up to this point to get him. To me, with the way the board fell, I was very surprised at this trade. I did not really understand the value. And really that's because I thought Patrick Queen, who went number 28 to the Ravens, was a better linebacker than Kenneth Murray, and they played a similar style, so it's not like the excuse of, oh, well, they're just different players. I think they played similar style. I thought Patrick Queen would probably have fit the Chargers really, really well, and the fact that they had to trade up to 23 just didn't make a lot of sense when there were really two guys on the board that even if you do value Kenneth Murray ahead of Patrick Queen, I really don't understand how you can value him that much ahead. To say that you need to draft him with the 23rd pick and take him when both players are still available, that was a surprise to me. I think that was an example of handling the board very poorly and kind of getting stuck on a player that you loved. And they must have loved him. They absolutely must have. And look, he's going to a really good situation. Again, I love the player. I don't hate the pick. I didn't love the trade. And because there's only 2 picks in the first round, I'm kind of combining where I talk about the players and the trade here. They traded their 2nd and 3rd round pick to move up into the first round. So they move up about 14 spots from 37 to 23 and then flip their 71st overall pick to the Patriots. And to me, it just didn't make sense. For one, like I said earlier, there was Patrick Queen who was on the board, and two, I mean, they had some needs. They did. They really needed to go offensive linemen. Add that to the fact that Zach Bond and Josh Jones were both available at 72 and 74 overall, respectively. I think there were just better options. Now, I understand falling in love with a player and making a move to go get him. So I love that move when you're a team that can afford it. But let's be honest, this is a team that was picking 6 overall for a reason. And so just to me, the value was all off for me. I just didn't like the move. I didn't understand it with the players that were left on the board. The relative depth at linebacker in this draft, if you needed a linebacker, I just don't understand, man. I really don't. Again, they fell in love with Kenneth Murray, and they did what they had to do to go get him. I can applaud the basic concept of that, but when I really dive into draft management and positional value and things like that, I just have trouble accepting that move for what it was. But again, if Kenneth Murray ends up being a star in this league, no one's really going to care that a couple days after the draft it didn't look like the best deal in the world. It just doesn't matter at the end of the day. Usually in these videos, I only really talk about the first 3 rounds and then all the trades they made, but I've already done that, and I feel like there's just a little bit more to say about this draft. So I am going to kind of go down the list. And round 4 at number 112 overall, they took Joshua Kelly. I didn't personally understand this move. I didn't value Josh Kelly in the 4th round at all, and I know I'm a minority there, so I'm not going to sit here and call them stupid for it, because I've heard it a lot throughout the draft process that Joshua Kelly was being talked about in that 3rd to 4th round range. I didn't see it. I did a draft profile on him as well, and you can check that out if you're interested in more of why I didn't see it, but I just didn't. I didn't think that the style of running back that he was warranted that type of pick. He's a good player, a really good guy, and I wish nothing but the best for him. But to me, I think the 2 running backs that they have on the roster right now are better, and to me, as far as positional value, I just didn't see that. My favorite pick in this draft class was KJ Hill in the 7th round, which I understand that's kind of mean. I was a big fan of KJ Hill. I don't understand how KJ Hill fell as far as he did. I understand this was a very, very deep draft and at wide receiver, so that definitely had something to do with it. But to me, man, KJ Hill is a star in the making, and his 40 time hurt him. He ran a 4.6 flat, I believe, 40, and for a slot receiver, that's just really, really slow. But there's a lot of receivers in the NFL that didn't have fantastic 40 times and still were able to create a pretty good career for themselves. The Chargers have one, and Keenan Allen. I mean, so it's not crazy to think that KJ Hill couldn't be successful. And again, I know I'm kind of plugging other videos, and I don't want to do that. I'm just saying, if you're interested in more of a deep dive on him as well, I do have that. It was a video that I did pretty early on in the process. I think I did it right around when the Senior Bowl ended, so that's kind of where we were in the draft process. So a lot of things changed, but I had him there at that time in the 3rd round, and I think if you would have asked me a day before the draft, I would have told you he's probably going to go anywhere from the 3rd to 5th round at the latest. So in the 7th, I thought that was a huge steal. I think he has a really good chance to, I mean, not only make the team, but crack into the lineup here and there in his first year. My least favorite move probably was taking Joshua Kelly when Anthony McFarland was still on the board. To me, that was just a crazy difference in value. I thought Anthony McFarland, running back for Memphis, is a much better prospect than Joshua Kelly was. So I was a little bit surprised by that, just because, I mean, there was a better player on the board and they took Joshua Kelly. That's, again, just my opinion, but that's where I was at there, and I think that was my least favorite move. And as far as the biggest surprise for this draft class, the fact that they didn't go offensive line really shocked me, especially considering they needed it. They really did. They needed to upgrade the offensive line position, and I understand that's just not the way the board fell for them. But a part of that does have to do with that Kenneth Murray deal, and that's part of the reason I didn't love the Kenneth Murray deal. I thought they needed players at other positions, so to me, not getting an offensive lineman was a huge miss there, at least at some point in the draft, man, especially for a team that needs it. I'm not going to harp on that too much when you don't need it. It's still something I think is very important. But man, for the Chargers, they needed help on the offensive line, and they didn't get it. So that's a little bit upsetting to me for the Chargers anyway. But all in all, my final grade for them is a C. I had certain issues with their decision making. I personally think they overvalued certain players that I just didn't value right, which does go into this grade. And the other part of it is I think they mishandled a trade. I really do. I think trading into the 1st round, it was a sexy move. It's exciting, and that's really cool. I think there were more assets that you could have received in other ways, and the fact that they didn't recoup any assets later in the draft, they didn't make any other draft day trades, that was a little bit concerning to me. That was a little bit upsetting to me. So that for all of those reasons, I'm giving this grade a C. But all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let me know why I'm completely wrong and why this was the best draft ever for the Chargers. Let me know what you guys thought, and I will see you next time, guys. Peace.